Welcome back to Prime News on HLN. Again, you look at the picture over my shoulder. Little Aveion Lewis. Police say the little 2-year-old is dead. Want to go to our expert, Michelle Sagona. She's been following this one, investigative journalist. Michelle, what do we know about the search for this little guy's body?
Well, as of today, Mike, unfortunately, the search has come to a halt. That's because the weather in Roanoke isn't that great today. They weren't able to put searchers out on the ground. They do have a lot of folks coming in from other states to assist with this. They've brought in a lot of dogs. They're scouring the lands. They're scouring the waterways, doing everything that they can to try to find Aveion. What's interesting is that a conversation that I had earlier with someone with the Roanoke Police Department is that the stepfather, Brendan Lockett, did in fact admit that Aveion was dead before that 911 call was placed, and that the abduction was bogus. But what they don't know is exactly where the body is dumped. So it seems at some point he just stopped talking. What
a sad end here. And as we've been talking about, there's stepfather Brandon Lockett. We've been talking that this little guy was in foster care and doing well. So May of 2008, he checks into foster care, and he weighs at that point 8 pounds. He's 15 months old. From that point on, though, in foster care, he's thriving. Those that work with him, the agency that helped get him into foster care, say he was a new child. Yet he ends up back with the parents, and now police say he ends up dead. A few Facebook comments. Tina writes this: CPS is trying to keep the family unit together, ignoring the obvious. Peter writing, this was a disaster the minute the agency returned Aveion, and that's what it's looking like here. Wendy says changes need to be made within the justice system in this country, and a continuation off that from Jan writing, maybe if the justice system would change its laws regarding brutality to kids. Bring in John Lusage, former criminal investigator. John, does the justice system, do we as a people look at this, and do things change after a sad story like this and what we see playing out?
You know, for the short term, I've seen them change, but, you know, they go right back to being what it used to be, and more kids die. I mean, how many kids do we have to have across the United States continue to die like this? And it happens way too often. Here's a judge, despite what the government was telling him, you know what, I can understand you want to put a family back together, you want to try it, but put mandatory monitoring in place. And if Michelle's report is right about this was a court decision, then the courts here failed her, not CPS and not law enforcement. Okay, it was one person.
And Michelle, the follow-up to that is, okay, so he goes back with the parents against the agency we've been talking about, against their better judgment.
Against their better judgment.
Did anybody check on this little guy after that?
Well, what's interesting is that Robin, the CEO of this agency, and again, this is according to her, because I initially thought that CPS had put the child back in with the parents, but she corrected me on that, and she said, no, that was a court decision. So that's something, unfortunately, by the time we went on the air, I wasn't able to call the courts to verify that. But I do want to mention that their agency did try to go back and continue staying with Aveion back in April 2009, but the family would not sign a consent form. And the reason is because they were the initial agency that reported Aveion's, not being properly taken care of to CPS. So the family did not want them to come back in again.
Again, you look at this adorable two-year-old just failed. System failed him miserably. Guys, thanks so much. Always appreciate it. Coming up, a 13-year-old accused of killing his own father.